According to the Urantia book, the lineage of the Fondors can be traced back to the early Cenozoic era. Around 45 million years ago, during the Eocene period, a large ostrich-like land bird evolved on Urantia, standing about 10 feet tall and laying massive eggs roughly 9 by 13 inches in size. These giant flightless birds were the ancestors of the later gigantic passenger birds, the Fondors, that would eventually take to the skies. Over ensuing epochs, as mammals and other life forms advanced, these avian ancestors gave rise to true flying wonder birds, capable of supporting the weight of human beings in flight. By the time primitive humans appeared, enormous flying birds had developed, and early people would come to tame and ride these creatures. The Fondors are presented as a unique feature of Urantia's prehistorical fauna. They flourished through the ages when large animals dominated, surviving into the era of human evolution. When mortal-will creatures, primitive humans, emerged and began forming early societies, the stage was set for the utilization of these great birds. The Urantia book notes that early evolutionary man learned to make extensive use of the larger flying animals, implying that by the time of primitive human tribes, the Fondor, or its analogues, were present and available for domestication. Fondors thus represent an evolutionary success, a colossal avian species that not only attained flight, but also a level of intelligence and tameness that allowed close interaction with humans. Fondors played a significant role in the early history of human civilization on Urantia. They are first mentioned in the context of the planetary princes era, long before modern recorded history. Around 500,000 years ago, when Prince Caligastia's staff established a primitive society at Dalmatia, the Fondors were integrated into human use. The prince's corporeal staff included a division known as the Board of Animal Domestication and Utilization, led by an expert named Bon. Bon's group successfully trained the great Fondors as passenger birds, essentially introducing aviation to the primitive world. In those days, early humans were taught to domesticate various animals for food, labor, and travel. Dogs had long been human companions, and cattle and elephants were being tamed. The Fondors, however, were a revolutionary addition. The training of these great Fondors allowed people to travel through the air, riding on the backs of the huge birds. This development provided an unprecedented vantage point and mobility in an age where even the wheel was a new invention. Indeed, the Urantia book notes that it was during this period that carrier pigeons were also first used for communication, while Fondors were used to carry passengers. Together, these innovations greatly expanded the range of human communication and transport. For the early races of Urantia, Fondors became an invaluable resource. The text implies that primitive tribes made extensive use of these large flying animals in their daily life. A person could fly to distant locations in a matter of hours, covering in one trip what might have taken many days on foot. This likely facilitated cultural exchange and coordination among far-flung settlements of early humans. Your early ancestors enjoyed their services, the book remarks, underscoring that the use of Fondors was a familiar reality to those ancient peoples. We might imagine messenger riders flying between tribal villages, or scouts surveying new lands from the air, activities otherwise impossible in that era. In the Garden of Eden period, 38,000 years ago, Fondors were still present and serving humanity. Adam and Eve, the material son and daughter who arrived on Urantia as biologic uplifters, found Fondors in use when they assumed leadership of the world. On the third day after their arrival in Eden, Adam and Eve toured the entire garden by riding on the large passenger birds. From aloft on the backs of the large passenger birds, the Fondors, the pair looked down upon the vast stretches of the garden as they were carried through the air over Eden's beautiful landscape. This aerial survey gave them a comprehensive view of their new domain in a single day, something that would have been impractical by ground travel. Not long after the Adam and Eve era, the fortunes of the Fandors waned. The text does not detail the cause of their extinction, but it emphasizes that by a bit over 30,000 years ago, the species had died out. This suggests that within a few millennia after Adam and Eve, no Fandors remained. Their disappearance might have coincided with climatic shifts, the last ice age glaciations, or perhaps the turmoil and warfare that followed the default of Adam and Eve and the breakup of early civilization. Whatever the cause, later generations of humans were deprived of these living airplanes. By the time of historical record, mankind had no memory of riding giant birds, making the Fandors' existence a lost chapter of prehistory preserved only in the Urantia book's account. Finally, it is worth noting the legacy of the Fandors and their riders. While modern mankind has no direct memory of ever riding on the back of a giant bird, the concept does spark the imagination, and the Urantia book suggests it was a literal reality in our distant past. In the narrative of Urantia's development, Fandors and their daring riders played a transitional role. They bridged the gap between the ground-bound life of early humans and the future age of mechanical flight. They allowed humans to experience the sensation of flying and to shrink the distances between tribes long before technology provided similar capabilities. In the universe at large, such partnerships are not unheard of. Even on advanced worlds like Jerusalem, transport birds carry material beings who cannot themselves fly. Thus, the image of a human rider astride a mighty winged creature is part of the cosmic tapestry of evolutionary worlds. On Urantia, that chapter closed millennia ago with the extinction of the Fandors. But through the accounts in the Urantia book, we have a detailed glimpse of these fantastic creatures and the people who rode them. A vision of Stone Age aviators flying on loyal feathered giants, surveying primeval forests and fertile plains from the sky.